agree with the family. I hope you die in prison as well.
And wants to get a nose job. Just that kind of person. And I shot him right here. I gave him his nose job.
It is therefore ordered that you shall be put to death by electrocution in the mode prescribed by law, and that you shall be transferred to the custody of the warden at the Tennessee Prison for Women. And further, on the 12th day of January 1997, your body shall be subjected to shock by sufficient current of electricity.
Shaina Hubers. On October 12, 2012, Shaina Hubers shot her boyfriend Ryan Poston 6 times in his Highland Heights, Kentucky condominium. The 21-year-old psychology student fired 3 shots to his head and face, 2 to his chest, and 1 to his arm as he lay on the floor. Poston, a 29-year-old attorney, had planned to end their tumultuous relationship that night and go on a date with Miss Ohio. Instead, he was pronounced dead at the scene. Hubers called 911 calmly, reporting, "I just shot my boyfriend." She claimed self-defense, saying Poston had strangled her. But the scene showed no signs of struggle and no defensive wounds on Hubers. Prosecutors argued it was premeditated murder by a scorned, obsessively attached lover. What happened during her interrogation would become the most damning evidence against her. After being read her Miranda rights, Hubers spoke for hours. The entire session was videotaped, and her behavior was beyond bizarre. Tearfully describing the shooting, Hubers suddenly veered into morbid humor. Pointing to her own nose, she said of Poston, "He was very vain. One of our last conversations was that he wanted to get a nose job. And I shot him right here. I gave him the nose job he always wanted." She laughed, adding it was kind of funny.
That I couldn't stand to watch him twitch when he was about to die or have a completely deformed face. He's very vain and wants to get a nose job. Just that kind of person. And I shot him right here. I gave him his nose job.
But the interrogation got stranger. When left alone, Hubers didn't know she was still being recorded. She danced around with celebratory flair, twirling and skipping, and sang Amazing Grace at the top of her lungs. At one point she exclaimed, "Yup, I did it," and giggled.
I did. Yeah, I did. He said, "I guess you hillbilly from Kentucky." And I know. Yes, it's the hillbilly came out on me.
Lieutenant David Fornash called it the most bizarre interrogation he'd seen in his career. In April 2015, the jury deliberated just 5 hours before convicting Hubers. They recommended 40 years. However, the conviction was overturned in 2016 when it was discovered one juror had concealed a felony conviction. The retrial began in August 2018. Prosecutors replayed the interrogation footage, emphasizing her callous jokes and celebratory dancing. After less than 5 hours, the jury convicted her again. The next day they recommended life imprisonment. On October 18, 2018, Judge Daniel Zala sentenced Hubers to life with parole eligibility after 20 years. Poston's father Jay expressed raw grief over losing his son to what he called evil. As of October 2025, Shaina Hubers, now 34, is incarcerated at the Kentucky Correctional Institution for Women. She won't be eligible for parole until September 2032. The interrogation footage of her laughing about giving her boyfriend the nose job he always wanted remains one of the most chilling pieces of evidence in true crime history. While Hubers danced and sang after killing her boyfriend, another woman would show even more brazen disrespect during her sentencing, behavior so outrageous it would provoke a judge to threaten her with duct tape. Camia Gamut. On May 18, 2012, in Jackson, Michigan, Camia Gamut stabbed her boyfriend Marcel Hill 11 times with a fillet knife, nearly decapitating him. But the stabbing was only the beginning. The 29-year-old also beat the 37-year-old hearing-impaired man with a broken floor lamp, a frying pan and end table, and possibly a toilet plunger and vacuum cleaner hose, up to 9 weapons total. The attack left a 10-inch gash from his sternum to his neck. Hill was found dead in their apartment. Gamut called 911, claiming she'd been attacked by an unknown intruder. She said she mistook Hill for a burglar and fought him off in self-defense. But there were no signs of forced entry and no defensive wounds on Gamut. Witnesses testified to Gamut's controlling and aggressive behavior. In February 2014, after just 2 hours of deliberation, the jury convicted her of first-degree premeditated murder. But it was the sentencing hearing on April 16, 2014, that would make headlines. As family members delivered victim impact statements, Hill's Aunt Diana Banks Joyner tearfully recounted the abuse Hill had endured. She begged for justice. Midway through, Gamut interrupted with a dismissive, "Is that it?" She smirked. She snickered. She rolled her eyes. She mouthed sarcastic remarks at the grieving relatives. Judge John McBain had seen enough. His face turned red with fury. He halted the proceedings and exploded at Gamut.
You gutted him like a fish in that apartment, too. You were relentless. You stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed, you stabbed until he was dead.
Aligning himself with the family, McBain declared,
I agree with the family. I hope you die in prison as well. You know, if this was a death penalty state, you'd be getting the chair.
The gallery erupted in applause. McBain sentenced Gamut to life without parole, warning her once more to stay silent. He later defended his outburst, saying he'd never encountered such rudeness from a defendant. Sometimes I think a judge needs a little fire. The Michigan Court of Appeals upheld the conviction in February 2016, acknowledging McBain's intemperate remarks, but ruling they occurred post-verdict and didn't affect fairness. Gamut's interruptions were captured on video and went viral. Many viewed her behavior as evidence of sociopathy. Despite maintaining her innocence and tearfully telling the court, "I loved Marcel," her earlier disruptions overshadowed everything. As of October 2025, Camia Gamut, now 44, remains incarcerated at the Women's Huron Valley Correctional Facility with no eligibility for release. From a woman who mocked her victim's family in court, we move to Tennessee, where a teenage killer not only murdered with shocking brutality but kept a piece of her victim's skull as a trophy. Christa Pike. On January 12, 1995, in Knoxville, Tennessee, 18-year-old Christa Pike lured 19-year-old Colleen Slemmer into a secluded wooded area near the University of Tennessee campus. Pike believed Slemmer was trying to steal her girlfriend Tatterall's ship. What happened next was one of the most brutal murders in Tennessee history. Pike attacked Slemmer with a box cutter, slashing her throat and body over 300 times in a prolonged assault lasting 30 to 45 minutes. Along with Ship and their friend Shadal Brown, Pike beat Slemmer with chunks of asphalt and stomped on her head. They carved a pentagram into her chest. Finally, Pike smashed Slemmer's skull with asphalt, killing her. As a trophy, Pike cut off a piece of Slemmer's skull and kept it in her jacket pocket. The trio returned to their Job Corps dorms, where Pike bragged about the murder, showing off the skull fragment. Slemmer's body was discovered the next day. The medical examiner described the injuries as among the most brutal he had ever seen. Pike was arrested within hours. Pike grew up with an abusive alcoholic mother, an absent father, and suffered sexual abuse at age 9. She was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and severe depression. At Job Corps, she became obsessed with Tatterall's ship and saw Slemmer as a romantic rival. Days before the murder, Pike had threatened, "I'm going to kill you if you don't stay away from Tatterall." Pike's trial began in March 1996. Ship pleaded guilty and received life with parole eligibility after 25 years. Brown testified against Pike in exchange for 25 years. Pike took the stand claiming she blacked out, contradicted by her detailed confessions and the skull fragment. After less than 3 hours, the jury convicted Pike of first-degree murder. During the penalty phase, Pike showed no remorse, smirking during victim impact statements. On March 29, 1996, the jury sentenced Pike to death by electrocution, making her the youngest woman on death row in the United States at age 20.
It is therefore ordered that you shall be put to death by electrocution in the mode prescribed by law, and that you shall be transferred to the custody of the warden at the Tennessee Prison for Women. And further, on the 12th day of January 1997, your body shall be subjected to shock by a sufficient current of electricity. May God have mercy upon you.
Pike's violence didn't end. On August 24, 2001, while awaiting execution, Pike attempted to strangle fellow inmate Patricia Jones with a shoelace in the prison cafeteria. Guards intervened. In 2004, Pike pleaded guilty to attempted first-degree murder and received an additional 25-year sentence. Pike has filed multiple appeals, all denied. In 2022, her clemency petition was denied in 2023. As of October 2025, Christa Pike, now 49, remains on death row at the Deborah K. Johnson Rehabilitation Center in Nashville. She is the only woman on Tennessee's death row. No execution date has been set. The skull fragment trophy and pentagram carving made it a notorious ritualistic murder. While Pike carved a pentagram into her victim and kept a skull fragment, our final case involves a teenage driver who turned her car into a murder weapon, deliberately crashing at 100 miles per hour and earning herself a chilling nickname from the judge. McKenzie Sharilla. On July 31, 2022, in Strongsville, Ohio, 17-year-old McKenzie Sharilla was behind the wheel of her Honda Civic with her boyfriend Dominic Russo, 20, and his friend Davion Flanagan, 19, as passengers. The three had been celebrating after a concert, smoking marijuana and using THC vapes. Around 2 a.m., surveillance video captured the final moments. Sharilla accelerated down a dead-end street, reaching 100 miles per hour. She didn't brake. She didn't swerve. She slammed into a brick building at full speed. The impact was so severe that all three were unconscious and trapped. Russo and Flanagan were pronounced dead at the scene. Sharilla sustained non-life-threatening injuries. Prosecutors argued this was no accident. This was deliberate rage and jealousy. Sharilla and Russo's relationship was volatile. Witnesses testified that Sharilla had previously threatened to crash the car during fights, once saying she would kill us all if he broke up with her.
Defendant controlled all the events. She chose the day. Specifically, she chose the day just before her 18th birthday. She chose to drive the car, the time to drive the car. She chose an obscure, previously scouted route through an industrial workway. She chose the target to hit and the victims. She chose the means and the method to follow through.
Data from the car's black box showed Sharilla floored the accelerator for 4 to 5 seconds. No mechanical issues were found. The defense claimed her shoe got stuck, debunked by video evidence. The bench trial took place in August 2023 before Judge Nancy Margaret Russo. Prosecutors presented the surveillance video, text messages about Sharilla's threats, and crash reconstruction evidence. They noted her hospital behavior. She asked officers if they could just suspend her license for 10 years, focusing on consequences for herself rather than the deaths. After a 4-day trial, Judge Russo found Sharilla guilty on all 12 counts. The judge described it as a selfish, intentional, and cruel decision, and dubbed her hell on wheels. The sentencing hearing on August 21, 2023, was emotional.
But this was not a car accident. The evidence and science proved that McKenzie Sharilla murdered my son, Dominic, as well as Davion. No one can imagine the pain of losing a child, unless they have lost one themselves.
Russo's brother Angelo accused Sharilla of killing Dominic, in cold blood, out of possessiveness. Flanagan's sister begged for the maximum sentence.
Up when I fell. He was my best friend and the only person that has stayed with me since I was born. I would like you to give Mackenzie the longest possible sentence. I've known her for about 3 years, and as she's always taken the easy way out. You shouldn't be able to take.
Prosecutors highlighted videos of Sharilla attending parties while awaiting trial. Sharilla addressed the court tearfully.
The families of Dom and Davion, I'm so deeply sorry. I hope one day you can see I would never let this happen or do it on purpose. And to my family, thank you for the support and all the love you guys give. Thank you for fighting with me. I love you all so much. I'm done. Thank you.
Her defense requested leniency, citing her age. Judge Russo sentenced Sharilla to 2 concurrent life sentences with parole eligibility after 15 years. She warned, "There's only one person responsible for the pain in this room, and that's you, Mackenzie." The judge noted Sharilla would likely spend life in prison based on her conduct. On October 24, 2024, the Court of Appeals unanimously upheld the verdict. As of October 2025, Mackenzie Sharilla, now 21, is incarcerated at the Ohio Reformatory for Women. Her earliest parole date is August 2038, when she will be 34. The victims' families remain opposed to early release. Judge Russo's Hell on Wheels moniker and the surveillance footage of Sharilla deliberately accelerating into a building at 100 miles per hour have cemented her place in true crime infamy.